So I saw this post the other day when I was scrolling social media that said about a time where a teacher said the words, "I don't want to be a teacher anymore." And when I saw this post, it really stuck with me because I can remember the exact point in my teaching career when I decided that maybe teaching wasn't for me. So it was October, my very first year of teaching, and I was the first car there. I was planning the day of. I would rush to school to plan for the day, try to print everything and prep everything for the day. And oftentimes I would stay late. I would be there grading, I would be there responding to families. And it seemed like no matter what I did, I could not get caught up and I couldn't get ahead. So at that point, I had backstory. I'd wanted to be a teacher since I was 5 years old, so I was super excited to get into this. But I quickly realized that teaching wasn't actually what I thought it was going to be, and I questioned whether or not I was going to be cut out for this. So I remember in October, my kindergartners at the time were in their Halloween party. I was overwhelmed, and I just started to ask myself, maybe this isn't it. Maybe I'm not meant for this. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Can I do another year of this? And I still remember when my kindergartners graduated later that next year in December, I had reached burnout. And that October, or in that June when they graduated, and I watched them cross the gymnasium, I decided that my last year had been a complete failure. Not a failure because I didn't show up for the lesson plans, I didn't show up for my kids, and I didn't do my best, but because I was so bombarded with chasing a to-do list that I wasn't actually there to make an impact with my kids. And I wasn't there to experience their learning moments. My kids were learning amazing things, and I was so caught up in a to-do list that I could never get done that I didn't actually get to enjoy those. And I decided in that moment that I was a failure. I remember tearing up as my little kindergartners were graduating, and I remember thinking, I cannot do that again. So, being who I am, I decided from that point on that I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to figure out how to get ahead of this to do list so I can be there and actually make the impact that I was destined to make and be there for my students. So that's when I decided to dive into time management, and that's honestly how I got here today. So, with all that being said, that's a little bit about my backstory, but let's go ahead and dive into 5 steps I took in order to become the present teacher and to be in the moment and to become that teacher that I know I'm capable of being and to make that impact with my students that made me passionate about wanting to go into this profession in the first place. So, here are the 5 steps I took, and I'm hoping that you can take these 5 steps and incorporate them into your day so you can be that teacher that you know you're meant to be, but you just can't because you're overwhelmed with how much you're expected to do as a teacher. So, the first step I have for you is to be mindful in the moment. Now, this is going to be very vulnerable. And if you don't like talking about mental health, maybe this isn't for you. There is some loss coming in this next section. So, feel free to close out if this is not for you, and no hard feelings. So, the reason I say mindful in the moment, I'm going to back up to when I was in my master's degree. So, I graduated from high school with 2 years of college done. I was 20 at the time going through my MED, my Master's in Arts of Teaching for Elementary Education. And it was an extensive program, meaning I had to do 10 months through my MAT and get certified at the same time. And it was around December when I opened the door and saw my father there, and he let me know that one of my siblings had passed away due to suicide. And I just remember in that moment, my knees collapsing, and I was just distraught because my sibling and I had been like best friends growing up. And I was just, I couldn't think. I was supposed to go at the time to Mexico for 8 months or 6 months to finish up my master's program, but that wasn't even a question. So I went down to New Mexico with my then boyfriend, Kyle, now husband. And we went down, we planned the funeral, and it was really I think a couple days before Christmas, honestly. And there came a point where I had to reach out to my program and tell them what happened. And they told me that I would either have to continue through this master's in elementary education program, or I would have to restart and pay $40,000 in tuition. So, being who I am, I decided to push through and to continue through and to keep going with the program. That was the hardest year of my life. I wouldn't have done it without the help and support of my family and my close friends, my boyfriend and his family. And I ended up going and seeking, mental health support. I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression. I did go on medication. It didn't end up working for me. But despite all that, I managed to graduate in June with my master's in elementary education and get certified. Now, at this point, I had moved across the United States from Oregon to New Mexico for my first teaching position, and I had thought that I had made it. I thought that this was going to be the easy part. I had gone through all that. What could possibly be harder than that? And boy, was I surprised. And what I would find myself doing is throughout the day, I would nitpick everything I did. I would either be reliving situations and how I taught throughout the day and kind of like wish I had done better and I should have done this. And at the same time, I was terrified about what was going to happen in the future. Was I going to be good enough? Were my students' test scores going to go up enough? And it really felt like I was being pulled into these two extreme different directions at the same time. And that's when I reached out to a counselor I was seeing at the time. And she let me know that it's all about being mindful. Now, mindfulness is being in the moment right now. So not letting your mind pull you in either the future or the past, but being here in the moment. Now, if I'm being honest with you, back at that time when I was starting my first year of teaching after losing a sibling of mine, moving across country, I had a hard time being in the moment. I couldn't sit here and talk to my kids without having a whole conversation in the back of my mind. And so, what she told me to do was to actually just focus on one thing at a time and pick an activity to help you be mindful. So, for me, that was vacuuming. I know I'm weird. I like to vacuum my house. So, what I would do and mop it. So, what I would do is as I was vacuuming, I would just practice thinking of nothing else but vacuuming. And it was like a muscle. It's just like working out. The more that you do it, the better you get at it. And so, what would happen is I would focus and be in the moment for maybe a minute, and then I would go off on a tangent in my mind. Maybe eventually I got to 5 minutes and then 10 minutes, and eventually I could do it the entire time I was vacuuming. And this whole idea of being mindful in the moment was really, again, a muscle I had to practice on, and I got better and better as I went. And now I'm happy to say that more times than not, I'm here in the moment. And the reason that I've made this such a priority in my life is I wasn't able to reach my kids in the ways that they deserved. I wasn't able to see that this student, although they looked like they were struggling this when I was on autopilot, they were actually struggling with this. I was able to meet my kids where they were, and I was able to hold space for them and meet them where they're at, which is the whole value and mission I had as a teacher. So, practicing being mindful in the moment. You can do activities, like I said, where you just focus on being in the moment and not letting your mind, wander. And I tried really hard not to be hard on myself when it would wander, but I would remind myself, hey, we're practicing this. Let's go back to this. We can come back to that thought later. Meditation is something, yoga, exercising, all of these are really great ways to get yourself out of your head and into your body and to be in the moment. So that's the first step I highly recommend that you do, is to be mindful in the moment. The second thing I recommend that you use, which has completely changed my life, which are systems. Now, systems in the classroom is something I didn't honestly incorporate until COVID happened. Around COVID, I noticed that a lot of new teachers were struggling with teacher wellness, and this was back before teacher self-care was popular. This was right before that. And so I wanted to start creating resources that helps teachers be in the moment and take care of themselves when, as you know, as teachers, we are so dedicated to our work that we're so much high likely to pull ourselves into 20 different directions and neglect ourselves. Not that we don't love ourselves, but we prioritize other people over us. So that's when I started learning about systems. I actually started learning about systems in my business and in my community here on the Present Teacher. I learned about things like SOPs, which are standard operating procedures on how you do things. I learned about batching, like doing like minded tasks at the same time. And I started incorporating these concepts I was using in business into the classroom. And what I discovered was it was actually working. So, with that being said, I'm very practical. Here are some systems I incorporate into my class that make it so I can run my classroom on autopilot so I'm not working on the weekends anymore. By incorporating these business practices that I started incorporating into my classroom, I was able to leave on the weekends. I wasn't staying late. I was 2 or 3 weeks out planning and prepping. I was caught up on grading for the first time in forever instead of pulling an all-nighter before report cards were due. And the crazy part was other people in my district started to notice. I would get stopped from teachers in my building asking me how I did it, and I would share with them and it would work for them. So here are the systems. I walk through all the people that come through the Present Teacher and what I recommend that you possibly look at too. The first one, and I incorporate all of this through the Thriving Teacher Framework. So the Thriving Teacher Framework is how we go from overwhelmed, overworked, working your weekends and nights away to prepped, ready to go 2 to 3 weeks out, not working your weekends, and being able to relax and take a vacation guilt-free and a break guilt-free and work-free. So first system we're going to work on is classroom management. Can you make it so your students naturally follow the expectations in class without you having to get a reminder or give them a reminder? Something that's absolutely magical about automating our classroom management is you can actually have your students run the classroom for you. So this could look like student drops, having your students get up and in line, transitions without you saying a word. Are you to the point where you can step back and not reheat your coffee 20, 30 times and finally get to sip it and sit back and work with the student one-on-one while the rest of your class is doing what they're supposed to? Can you step out into the hallway and know for a fact that your students are going to be doing what's expected of them? Can you make it where the norm is following expectations and disruptive behavior is something you can confidently manage, but it's not something that you're seeing constantly having to stop your teaching? It's something that happens on occasion. You know what's going to happen, your students know what's going to happen, you're going to address it, and you're moving on from there. So that's the first system we work through. The second system that I wish I would have utilized a lot sooner was family communication and communication in general. Can you have positive relationships with your family that if they have a concern, you're not worried about them blowing up on you? And if they do get upset out of the blue, you know how to diffuse the situation and help them feel seen, heard, and understood, and help them work together to solve the problem. Can you reach out to your families and have a positive relationship with them, and to the point where that they're proud that you're their teacher or their student's teacher and they rave about you in the community? Can you have consistent communication to the point where your weekly newsletters are automatic? You don't have to think about it. You're not weeks behind like I was, and your families know exactly what to expect and what's coming up. Can you have it to where your inbox is at zero? Zero unread messages. I'm serious. This is what I do. Can you have it to where all that's going on and your admin, you're on top of PDs, you're not doing them on the weekends, you're not, falling behind on those meetings. You are prepared and on top of it. And here's the thing, it's easy. You don't have to dread it. You're not being pulled in a million directions. It's easy and effortless. So that's the second phase, or the second system I recommend. First one, classroom management. Second one is family communication. Your third one is data and grading. I'm going to be honest with you, kindergarten, my first year, I graded everything, and I have a super embarrassing story to share with you. I was sitting there filling out the daily agendas for my kids because that's what the expectation was for the school. And my principal came in, sat next to me, and saw all of my papers that were in my students' mailboxes and said, "Hey, when are you going to catch up on that?" I was mortified because I was so embarrassed that my principal said something about it. I'm serious. I was not one of those teachers that was on top of it. And I would be that teacher that would stay up the night before report cards would due, like I said, and I would be grading and pulling all-nighters. It was that bad. I'd stay late after work, and my husband would, now then boyfriend, would be home without me. while I was grading. I'd be grading on the weekends. I was grading on winter break. Winter break, I still remember going to Starbucks and sitting there for 8 hours just grading all these papers. Here's how we fix that. Do you know how to just grade the things that matter and just give feedback on the things that don't? Do you know how to create systems that make grading effortless to where you're grading things that you already did that week and sending it home by Friday? Are you having, a turn-in basket is just non-existent anymore? Do you have it to where your students know that they are going to be taking their graded work back home, that's a tongue tie, by Friday? Do you have that system in place? And if not, that's okay. That's what I had to learn to do. And you guys, if I could put it into words. On Thursday, I sit there, I listen to a podcast, I listen to my music, I turn off the lights because I'm an introvert, and I do my thing, I grade, and it's done. That whole week that we just did is done. My grades are inputted into the grade book. My data from small groups are inputted, and I don't have to worry about it. It's done. So that's the next step, is grading. So classroom management, communication, grading. Fourth one, lesson planning and prepping. I missed one, organization, and then we'll do lesson planning and prepping. Organization. Do you have a way to organize all your digital files instead of going to the downloads and searching something because you can't find it? Do you have a system instead of going into TPT and searching for a resource that you're pretty sure you bought previously, but you're not sure and you can't find it, so you end up buying another version only to find out later that you actually did have that version and you finally found it? Do you have a system to have a master copy of all of your activities? That way when you lesson plan, all you have to do is I have these activities for it listed in my lesson plans. They're already linked. All I have to do is print them out and they're done. Do you have that system in place that makes grading almost effortless and ready to go? Do you have your resources organized? Do you have your digital files organized? All of these are really important and a very, very important step in order to plan and prep weeks ahead. The fifth step when it comes to systems is planning and prepping. Do you have a way to plan and prep not a week ahead, 2 weeks ahead, 3 weeks ahead, 4 weeks ahead? Do you know how to go from planning one day and prepping another day at least a week out in advance? Do you have that to where you can relook at, or you've organized your lesson plans from last year, even if you're not allowed to reuse them, but look at them as inspiration and take from them and make them better for the next year? Do you have these systems in place to where you're not going in the morning and prepping the day of? You're prepped and copied and ready to go weeks out. And if you have a sub, it's not that big of a deal. You already have the activities done. And if you lose a prep, it's not that big of a deal. You're already planned and prepped. That's what I learned to do through my business and these strategies that I applied into the Thriving Teacher Framework. The final step is, can you set boundaries? Can you stand up for yourself? Because I'm going to be honest with you, the year I decided to prioritize my time and my energy was the year that I made a greater impact than I ever have. And that's because I wasn't pulling from a frazzled space. I wasn't feeling like if someone asked me one more question, I might explode. I wasn't coming home disassociating and spacing out because I had no more emotion or mental capacity to give to myself or my family. And do you know how to set those boundaries in a way that doesn't make you feel guilty, in a way that you know why you're doing it, and it's easy. You don't have to think about it. Leaving at contract time is normal for you. Not signing up for extra stuff that you don't want to and saying it in a way that's polite and positive, is that natural to you? And how can we work on creating that? So those are all the systems I created to become the present teacher. So as a recap, we're talking about the 5 steps to become the present teacher and what I took. The first one we talked about was being mindful in the moment. The second one, we talked about systems and those 5 systems. Now let's talk about the third step I took in becoming the present teacher, and that is creating a schedule you're going to love. I'm gonna be real with you. This is what my schedule used to look like my first year of teaching. Plan for the day, lesson plan, prep for the day, grade all the stuff from today, and that to-do list that was huge, or that grading pile that was forever long and would never end. Respond to that email, diffuse a situation, reach out to a family, input that data, catch up on that PD if I had time, and I would hopefully maybe get all of that done only for it to restart the next day. I was exhausted. In December, I remember waking up that first year, looking around in the bedroom and crying because I had slept the first 4 or 5 days of my break. And not to scare you, but that's the reality, and I don't have that anymore. So creating a schedule you love, that was my old schedule. Now, here's my new schedule. I use this with batching. Batching. I theme my days. You tell me which one feels better. Today, I need you to write lesson plans, prep those out, grade all your assignments today, reach out to families, complete PD, and input your small group data. Okay, that's your to-do list for today. All right, that's option 1. Now, option 2, I need you to lesson plan as far out as you can, and that's it. That feels way better energetically. And so creating a to-do list that was laid out to where I just had one thing that was taking my energy each day was life-changing for me. I went from being a to-do list that would keep having to refill itself and I would have to keep redoing and rewriting every day to one simple task each day. And sure, I check my email before I leave and in the morning and I make sure it's still at 0, but that's it. So this is what I did. I was mindful of what my energy was like throughout the week. So I noticed, hey, on Monday, I come in with 100%, I'm rested, I've had the weekend, and then by Tuesday, I'm at like an 80%. By Wednesday, I got 60% energy. Thursday, I'm at 40. Friday, I'm at 20. Like, I'm an introvert, I'm capped out. I don't want to go talk to a bunch of people. I want to shut my doors, close the lights, shut the blinds, and just kind of chill. So then I started picking out what are my classroom running activities. Now, remember, I took this from the business world. IPAs are your income producing activities. Same thing, different concept. Instead of income producing activities from the business world, I want you to take classroom running activities. These are the things that you have to do on a weekly basis or your classroom will fall apart. I asked myself, what are the things I have to get done? I absolutely have to. Otherwise, everything falls apart. I came up with lesson planning, communication, data and grading, and prepping. Those are the things I have to do on a weekly basis or my classroom will fall apart and I'll show up and not know what to do. So I started matching those things with the energy I talked about earlier. So instead of, Monday looking like lesson planning, prepping, grading, writing that weekly newsletter, responding to emails, sending work home, like all that stuff, I just made, hey, lesson plan. On Monday, I'm going to focus on just lesson planning. I'm going to sit down for 40 minutes and lesson plan that entire 40 minutes for as long as I can. And that's what I focused on. On Tuesday, I noticed that, hey, if I prep the day after I lesson planned, everything's still fresh in my mind and I just lesson planned the day before. So let's say that Monday, I managed to prep out that following week. Okay, I'm good. Tuesday, I would sit there at the printer and I would sip my coffee, and on my prep, I would just make copies and, put paper clips on them and lay them out for the next week. That was Tuesday because it took like 80% energy, not really, but I liked having it right next to lesson planning because that's how my mind worked. Wednesday was communication day, weekly newsletter. Hey, I need to send that out by Friday. I'm going to make sure that's done. Oh, I have PD that's due Friday. I'm going to do it that day. Ooh, I didn't get to respond to that email. I'm going to do that now. I'm going to make sure my inbox is at 0. That was my Wednesday. Thursday was grading and data. Thursday, instead of having a to-do list of 20 things, I just had to focus on grading. And what I loved about that is I could listen to a podcast, depending on what I was grading, music, turn on my lights. My energy is at 40, so I don't really want to go talk to people. So I would just sit there and grade. And then Friday, guys, was my favorite thing. Friday was a catch-up day. Meaning, if I was done, I got to hang out. I got to go on a walk, read a book. I really want to change my bulletin board, but I haven't had time, so I'm going to do that. Or if, let's say we have assembly on Monday, I just shift everything down. Let's say on Tuesday, I had to cover a prep or something. I just shifted everything down and it wasn't that big of a deal then if I have a meeting on such and such date because I don't need that 5th prep. I mean, I enjoy my 5th prep and I like having my lights closed, but I don't need it. So that was the next thing. So going back to the 5 steps to becoming your own version of the present teacher: 1, mindful in the moment; 2, systems; 3, creating a schedule you love; and 4, an impact. So here's where the fun comes in. When you are showing up in the morning, your lesson plans are done for this week. Everything's prepped, ready to go. You've already caught up on grading. Your to-do list has 1 thing on it, and your inbox has 2 emails that you have to respond to in the morning or in the afternoon. And you have like a PD to do, but you don't have to worry about that till your communication day. You're able to show up then with those students in the moment. I'm not thinking of the endless to-do list on my desk while my kid and I are working on phonics, on digraphs. I can sit there and be in the moment and be mindful like we talked about. And this is where the impact happens. This is where the impact happens. This is where I have the energy on parent-teacher conference when I work as a team with my family and say, hey, here's what I'm noticing. Your student is really good at this. I noticed they have some struggles with this, or that we could work on this together. Let's work together. What would you like to do? How can we work together? Oh, you need some resources at home? Here you go. And the impact is different. You're there in the moment, and it's just way more fulfilling to live your life in the moment than behind a to-do list. And I'm nobody special. I was that teacher that was gonna quit their first year. I was that teacher struggling with anxiety and depression. I'm just an average teacher, and I managed to have that life, and you are too. You're able to make that impact. You're able to come in the morning excited, caught up. You're that teacher that's doing what you're meant to, which is making the impact, being in the moment and teaching, and it feels so different. And that's why I created the present teacher, is to help you get there. I want you to be there. I want you to be there making as much impact as you can. And I want to help you get to that point. So this is where everything ties in. And this is my favorite part, is where you make that impact. I had a student who struggled behavior-wise. He would hide under his desk. He would, rip things out. I was able to be in the moment and work with him, that by the time he went to 3rd grade, he went to his 3rd grade teacher and said, hey, I get triggered by this. When this happens, I need a 2-minute break. I will set my own timer, and when the timer is gone, I will go back. By the end of the year, he didn't even need the timer. I had a student who came in 2nd grade, did not know how to write his name, did not know how all his letters, and by the end of it, I got to see him read his first book. And the tears in that kid's eyes, because I was able to be in the moment, to see him read his first book, he asked to take that book home to show his mom. And because of my new position, I got to go see him in 4th grade. Now, mind you, this is a couple of years later. This kid who struggled with writing his name, with identifying letters at 2nd grade, in 4th grade was in the highest reading level and volunteering to read to the class, and he did it with inflection in his voice. The impact that you make is beyond, first off, as a teacher, I know you're going to be hard on yourself. I know you're going to feel like it's not doing anything. Trust me, as someone who's got to see where my kids left and see them now, you're making an impact. Even when you don't think you are getting through to them, you definitely are. And so my point is, you're making an impact and you're making a difference, and it makes a difference. And being there for these little moments and being able to enjoy them is the reason you're teaching. And I want to help get you there. The 5th and final step to becoming the mindful teacher on your own is to take care of yourself. As I said, that first couple of years, I was waking up at 4:30, going to work early, crying a couple times at work because of how overwhelmed I was, coming home at 6 or 7, sometimes the custodians kicked me out, to being able to show up excited, and my energy is just more stable throughout the week, and I don't have to worry about it. And I used to not want to take care of myself because I felt like it was selfish. I'm going to be vulnerable here. I felt like it was selfish, and energy I spent on myself, I could have spent and poured into my kids. But the problem was, the less I poured into myself, the less I had to offer. So, I would be like dipping, and eventually I had 10% filled to just kind of give to my kids. and vote where my energy had to go. And I was snappy and I didn't like who I was becoming, and my mental health struggled, and I knew I had to get away. And I learned that taking care of myself, eating healthy, having the energy to eat healthy, being ahead enough at work to go to the gym every day, to not take work home on the weekends, to have time to pour into this community like I have for the last couple of years has made so much difference. And if I can do that, full-time teaching and full-time sharing on here, I know you can too. So with all that being said, I want you to know it's possible for you. It is possible for you. It is possible for you. It is possible for you. If it's possible for me, you've heard my story. If it's possible for me, it is most definitely possible for you. Instead of looking at the teachers that are more experienced than us as, why am I not there yet? Remind yourself that they are showing you what's possible for me. Those teachers you look up to, whether it's on social media, email lists, teachers in your building, they started off exactly where you are. The only difference between where they are now and where you are is they've had more time to come up with these systems, come up with these steps, and figure out what works for them. Teaching is just one big experiment, guys. We are just figuring out what works for us and sticking with it. And it's just a big experiment to figure out, hey, this works for me. No, this doesn't work for me. And we're all different. I'm never going to tell you that, hey, the specific way I lesson plan has to be the way you lesson plan, because you're different, just like our students are. You get to try things. And that's why in all of my emails, in all of my podcasts, and all my YouTube videos, I sign off with "We are stronger together," because it's true. The best PD you have, my friend Annabelle from La Maestra Loca shared this on my podcast. The best PD you have is the teacher down the hall. And that is so true. Just seeing what others have to say and systems that they've created and taking it and warping into your own, that's the fun of teaching. And that's why I so much believe in community, because I'm not the expert. I'm sharing what worked for me, hoping you take it and morph it into whatever works for you, so you can do that to the next person, so you can do that to the upcoming teacher. And that's my mission. So with all that being said, that wraps up the 5 lessons in becoming the present teacher. So number 1, mindful in the moment. Can you be in the moment with your kids, with your family, with your loved ones, without having a to-do list on the back of your mind or being pulled into 2 or 3 different directions? Number 2, systems. Can you automate your classroom to where you're leaving at contract time? You're going on vacation guilt-free, and it's easy. It's a habit. It's like brushing your teeth. You don't have to think about it anymore because it's automated and it's freeing. Third thing, creating a schedule you love. Are you taking ownership of what your schedule looks like? And are you creating a life and a schedule that makes you feel good, that makes you help you show up as the person you're meant to be and the teacher you're meant to be? Number 4, impact. Are you able to show up and be that teacher you know you're meant to be, and I know you are capable of being? Number 5, taking care of yourself. Are you keeping your energy up at 100% so you can vote that 100% where it goes? Or are you keeping yourself low and dipping down to 10 and only having 10% to give? All right, so with all that being said, those are the 5 steps to becoming the present teacher. So I know this was very vulnerable of me, but I hope you got something out of this. And you know me, I like to keep it real. I like to be honest. If you want to take this a step further, if you want to keep working with me, at the end of the month, in the beginning of October, by the time this comes out on the podcast and YouTube video, I'm going to be opening up a community. Here's what I'm going to do. In this community, I want to show you behind the scenes what systems I'm working on. We're going to use the Thriving Teacher Framework. I'm going to show you what I use for classroom management. I'm going to show you what I use for communication, data organization, planning, and prepping, and to take care of myself. There's 12 modules on there. People on the waitlist have already been telling me what they want inside this community, and I've been creating it for the last couple weeks. It's already done. It's already created. Once you're in, you get to, you're like, hey, I need help with lesson planning, like now. Skip to the lesson planning section. If you're like, hey, I really need to help figure out how to communicate with my families, go to that section. It's a choose your own adventure. So that's the first thing. We have the Thriving Teacher Framework, the different phases I talked about how I automate it. And my goal with this is you take what works for you and you make it your own. Second thing we have is a community. I believe that we are stronger together. And I believe that a lot of new teachers would do so much better if they had support, if they had people cheering them on, and if they had people there to listen to them. And most importantly, if they had people there sharing their ideas. I'm not the only expert in that community. I promise you that. You're an expert and you have a new system, a new way of doing things that is going to completely blow another teacher's mind. That's going to be like, hey, I should do it that way because I like that way. So I want to create a community where you can share your wins, share new strategies, share when your second grader learns to write their name, share, when you get to go on a vacation and take a selfie of you taking a vacation without bringing work. Share about you having so much free time that you get to start your own business or start your own community like I have. I want you to be able to share that, but I also want you to ask for feedback. Hey, I'm struggling with this. Does anybody have this? I want you to feel free to reach out to other people in your area. Maybe you'll find somebody that's like I don't know, I'm in New Mexico, I was from Oregon, somewhere from there. Hey, you want to meet up on the weekend to get ahead so we can start incorporating these systems? I want you to have that. I want you to, hey, do you want to meet up virtually on our prep to keep each other accountable that we're focusing on one main thing and to make sure we get it done? I want you to have that community. And then also, action. I am using a platform called Kajabi. Those of you that are also content creators, you'll be familiar. If not, that's okay. I tried communities in the past and I liked them, but I didn't like them because not a lot of people like Facebook. So I'm using a different platform. What I like about this is it's off Facebook. It's an app you can download. And most of all, you can connect with each other and you earn points by cheering each other on, by sharing feedback, by completing challenges. I haven't gotten to that yet. And you get to unlock prizes. I want to give you templates. I want to give you which classroom procedure slides I use. If that'll help you. I want to give you which family newsletters I'm doing so I can just, copy and paste and not have to redo them every week. I want to give you templates. I want to make it easier. And we'll have challenges. So on October 15th, via the people on the waitlist, what we're doing is the challenge is on classroom management. I'm going to share everything from classroom procedures to rules to how I transition my kids with music so I don't have to say anything. I have a student go click the button for them to transition and that's it. And they set the timer and their classroom jobs have them automate things. So during that, we're going to do a 15-day challenge. And at the end, if you complete the challenge, you get to unlock extra templates and bonuses. So again, community. And then also inside the community, like I said, cheering each other on, supporting each other. So that's the second thing. Those are the two main components. And I mean, templates in there, journals in there, mindset in there. There's a lot in there. And so if that's something you're interested in, I'm going to be opening it up in October for a short window, and then I'm going to be closing it because I really want to work closely with this first group of present teachers, Circle Besties. And I want to work on that and be there and support you. That way, when I open the doors up later, I already have your feedback. You're going to help me create this. You're going to help test things out and tell me, hey, I like this. And if you don't see a lesson that you want me to cover, you can send me, there's a form at the bottom that says, hey, I want to see a lesson on this, and I can create that for you. That's what I like about the Thriving Teacher Framework. You have those 5 phases, and I can just add lessons as I go based on what you need. So if that's something you're interested in, I'd love to have you. This is a community for new first-year teachers, but honestly, I've helped veteran teachers with stuff like this. So don't feel like because you're not a first-year teacher, this isn't for you. My must-haves for ideal people inside this community: you're supportive, you're positive, you're willing to learn, you're willing to help other people and share what you're learning. That's, those are my people. I like chai, you can like coffee, whatever. But I would love to see you inside. If you want more help, I have a classroom management guide. If you go to the freebie section in my area, we have the classroom management guide. I answer the top 10 questions I get in regards to classroom management, plus I link to additional podcasts and YouTube videos for you to dive deeper into. So that wraps up this very long podcast and YouTube video, but I hope you found this useful, and make sure to like and subscribe or give me a follow. As always, remember, we are stronger together, and I will see you in the next one, Teacher Bestie. Bye.